Dr. Veltar had been studying alien signals for over 200 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Her tentacles trembled as she adjusted the massive receivers in the Council's deep space monitoring station. The signal coming from the Sol system made no sense at all. Every expert in the galaxy knew about Sol. It sat in the databases as a perfect example of what scientists called a death zone. The third planet especially was a nightmare world that violated every rule of where life could exist. The gravity alone would crush most species into paste. The atmosphere was filled with oxygen, a gas so reactive it could dissolve metal. The temperature swings were so extreme they could flash freeze or boil most known life forms in minutes. Yet somehow, impossibly, a complex technological signal was broadcasting from that exact planet. "This has to be some kind of mistake," muttered her assistant, a young researcher whose name translated roughly to curious about small things. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he rechecked their instruments. "Maybe it's just echoing off some old space junk." Veltar shook her head, her sensory fronds picking up details others missed. "No, look at the pattern. This isn't random noise or ancient debris. Someone is actively broadcasting this message, and they're trying to make it understandable to anyone who might be listening." She played the signal again, watching the translation software struggle with the alien language. The words were simple, almost childlike in their construction, but there was something else there, an urgency that made her skin crawl. "This is Earth calling anyone out there," the message repeated for the 1,000th time. "Our planet is dying from climate change. We need help. Please respond if you receive this message. We're running out of time." The more Veltar listened, the more disturbed she became. Whatever was sending the signal genuinely believed it lived on that death world. The message wasn't coming from orbit or from some safe distance. According to their instruments, it was broadcasting from the surface itself. "Have you calculated the conditions down there?" she asked her assistant. "I tried, but the numbers don't make sense. The surface temperature readings show liquid water existing at pressures that should turn it to steam. The atmospheric composition would be toxic to every known life form. And the gravity..." He paused, double-checking his work. "The gravity is nearly 10 times what most species can survive." Veltar felt a chill run through her body. In all her years of studying the galaxy, she had never encountered anything like this. The standard procedure was clear. Death worlds were quarantined for good reason. Nothing should be able to live there, much less build technology advanced enough for interstellar communication. But the signal kept coming. She made a decision that would change everything. Instead of filing the standard report and forgetting about it, she requested an audience with the full Galactic Council. Most of her colleagues thought she was wasting everyone's time, but something deep in her scientific instincts told her this was bigger than anyone realized. The council chambers were packed when she presented her findings. Representatives from dozens of species listened as she played the mysterious signal and explained its impossible origin. The reaction was exactly what she expected. Polite skepticism mixed with barely concealed amusement. Dr. Veltar, spoke Council Speaker Morden, his crystalline form flickering with diplomatic patience. "We appreciate your thoroughness, but surely you understand why this is impossible. That system has been classified as uninhabitable for good reason. Our best scientists confirmed decades ago that nothing could survive on any of those worlds." "I understand classification," Veltar replied firmly, "but I also understand what our instruments are telling us. Something is down there, and it's asking for help." The chamber filled with the various sounds different species made when they were trying not to laugh. Morden's form darkened slightly, the equivalent of a frown. Even if something could somehow exist in those conditions, what could we possibly do to help? Our environmental suits would fail within minutes of landing on that world. The very air would kill most of us. That's when Veltar played her final card. She had spent weeks analyzing every aspect of the signal, and she had found something that made her blood freeze. "The signal isn't just asking for help," she said quietly. "It's offering something in return. Look at this section here." She highlighted a portion of transmission that most had dismissed as static. They're sharing technical specifications, blueprints for surviving in extreme environments. And according to my analysis, their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours in environmental adaptation. The chamber fell silent. Advanced technology from a death world was either impossible or incredibly valuable, possibly both. After hours of debate, the council reached a compromise. They would send one small ship to observe from a safe distance. No landing, no direct contact, just confirmation that the signal was real and assessment of any potential value. Veltar volunteered immediately, knowing this might be the most important discovery in galactic history. As she prepared for the journey, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to learn something that would change how they saw the entire universe. The last thing she did before departing was run one more analysis of the signal's origin point. The results made her pause. Whatever was broadcasting from that death world wasn't just surviving there. According to the energy readings, it was thriving. Captain Rexonar had commanded deep space missions for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for the moment his ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Every warning alarm on his bridge screamed at once, filling the air with urgent beeps and flashing lights. "Captain, we need to retreat immediately," his navigator called out, panic clear in her voice. "The radiation levels here are off the charts. Our shields are already at 60% just from being in the system." Rexonar stared at his instruments in disbelief. The readings showed conditions that should have turned this entire region into a sterile wasteland billions of years ago. Yet as they approached the third planet, their sensors detected something impossible. Cities. Massive structures covering entire continents, with energy signatures that suggested millions of inhabitants. "Sir, incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's coming from the surface." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a creature that made Rexonar's foreheart skip a beat. The being looked fragile, almost delicate, with thin pink skin that appeared to offer no protection from its hostile environment. Its head was covered with brown fur, and it had only two eyes placed directly in front of its skull like a predator. "Hey there," the creature said, its mouth stretching into what their database identified as a threat display, though its voice sounded friendly. "This is Tyler from the International Space Station. We saw you guys coming from pretty far out. Welcome to Earth." Rexonar found his voice. You live on that planet?" Tyler's threat display grew wider. "Sure do. Born in Colorado, actually. Pretty nice place once you get used to the altitude. The air's a bit thin up in the mountains, but it keeps you tough." The alien captain quickly consulted his database. Colorado was apparently located at an elevation that would require pressurized suits for most galactic species to survive. This Tyler spoke of it like discussing a pleasant vacation spot. "We'd love to invite you down for a visit," Tyler continued, "but I should probably warn you that our gravity might be a little heavy for you. It's about 9.8 meters per second squared down here. Nothing too crazy, but some folks find it takes getting used to." Rexonar's crew exchanged horrified glances. That gravitational force would immediately crush most of them flat. Yet this fragile-looking creature spoke of it casually, as if mentioning the weather. "Also," Tyler added helpfully, "our atmosphere is about 21% oxygen. I know that sounds pretty intense, but don't worry. We've got some great engineers who could probably rig up something to keep you safe. We're pretty good at making things work in tough conditions." The communications officer muted the channel and turned to Rexonar with wide eyes. "Captain, oxygen at that concentration is classified as a Class A industrial solvent. It would corrode our ship's hull within hours." "And they breathe it," Rexonar whispered. Back on the screen, Tyler was joined by another human, this one with darker skin and shorter fur. "This is my colleague, Danny," Tyler explained. "He's going to help coordinate the landing procedures. He just got back from a research mission in Antarctica." Danny waved at the camera with what appeared to be genuine enthusiasm. "Sorry I'm a bit bundled up," he said, though he appeared to be wearing minimal protective covering. "Just came in from outside. It's about -40°C down there, but the weather's been pretty mild lately." Rexonar's environmental officer frantically checked the translation. -40 degrees was well below the freezing point of most biological fluids. Yet this Danny creature had apparently been working outside in those conditions and considered them mild. "We've set up a nice landing area for you," Tyler continued. "It's in Nevada, so it should be pretty comfortable. Only about 45 degrees Celsius today, and the radiation levels are really low, almost like a vacation spot." The alien crew sat in stunned silence. 45 degrees Celsius was hot enough to cook most known proteins, and these humans were describing it as comfortable landing weather. "One more thing," Danny added cheerfully. "We've got some coffee brewing for when you arrive. It's a local specialty, really mild stuff, so don't worry if you're not used to caffeine. We made it extra weak just in case." Rex NAR xenobiologists pulled up the chemical analysis of caffeine from their database. It was listed as a nervous system toxin, potentially lethal to most species even in small doses. The humans were planning to serve it as a welcoming beverage. "Captain," his navigator whispered, "what are we dealing with here?" Rex and AR stared at the view screen, where Tyler and Danny continued chatting about landing coordinates and local weather patterns, as if they weren't discussing conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within minutes. These creatures weren't just surviving on a death world. They were thriving there, building civilizations, and treating lethal environmental conditions like minor inconveniences. For the first time in his career, Rex and AR began to understand that the galaxy might be a much stranger and more dangerous place than anyone had imagined. And these humans, with their casual attitude toward conditions that would terrify hardened space marines, were inviting them down for coffee. "Send a message to the council," he told his communications officer quietly. "Tell them we've made contact, and that we're going to need to revise some of our assumptions about what's possible in this universe." On the screen, Tyler was already making plans for their visit, talking excitedly about showing them around and introducing them to the gang back home. Ambassador Lyane had studied first contact protocols for over a century, but nothing had prepared her for stepping onto the surface of Earth. The moment she emerged from her heavily shielded transport pod, every alarm in her environmental suit began screaming warnings about immediate danger. Yet her human escort, a cheerful woman named Beth, stood beside her in nothing but thin fabric coverings, breathing the toxic atmosphere directly into her lungs. "Welcome to Chicago," Beth said warmly, gesturing toward the towering structures that stretched impossibly high into the corrosive sky. "Hope you don't mind the weather today. It's a bit chilly, only about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, but at least the wind isn't too bad." Lyane checked her suit's readings frantically. 30 degrees Fahrenheit was dangerously close to the freezing point of water. The wind that Beth dismissed as not too bad was registering as a force that could knock over most galactic species. Yet Beth seemed completely comfortable, even removing her outer fabric layer as they walked. "This cold doesn't affect you?" Lyane asked through her suit's translation system. Beth laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both musical and slightly terrifying. "This? Nah. This is perfect sweater weather. You should see Chicago in January, when it really gets cold. Last winter we hit -20 with the wind chill. That's when it gets fun. The lake actually starts to freeze over." The ambassador suit informed her that -20 degrees would flash freeze most biological tissue in seconds. Beth was describing it like a pleasant seasonal activity. As they walked through what humans called downtown, Lyane watched in growing amazement at the casual way these creatures navigated their death world. Children, their offspring apparently no more protected than the adults, ran and played in the freezing temperatures. They launched themselves through the air with explosive force, colliding with each other in ways that require immediate medical attention for any civilized species, then got up laughing and continued their games. "Those are kids from the local elementary school," Beth explained, noticing Lyane's fascination. "They're on a field trip to the Natural History Museum. Pretty cool place, actually. They've got a great exhibit on extreme weather survival." "Your offspring learn about surviving extreme weather?" Lyane asked weakly. "Oh, sure. It's part of basic education. Kids need to know how to handle blizzards, tornadoes, flash floods, that sort of thing. My nephew Kevin learned to swim when he was 4. Not in a pool, mind you, but in Lake Michigan. My sister figured if he could handle those waves and that temperature, he'd be set for life." Lyone's database informed her that Lake Michigan contained water cold enough to cause immediate hypothermia, with wave action violent enough to damage spacecraft hulls. Humans were apparently teaching their 4-year-old offspring to navigate it recreationally. They entered what Beth called a coffee shop, where Lyone witnessed something that would haunt her for cycles to come. Dozens of humans sat casually consuming steaming beverages that her chemical analyzers identified as a complex mixture of alkaloids, acids, and compounds that were literally poisonous to every known species in the galaxy. "Want to try some coffee?" asked the human behind the counter, a young man named Rick. "I've got a nice mild blend today. Colombian, not too strong." "This beverage is safe for your species?" Lyone inquired. Rick grinned. "Safe? Lady, this stuff keeps us alive. I probably go through about 6 cups a day. Sometimes more if I'm pulling an all-nighter. My buddy Tom drinks espresso straight, but that might be too intense for a first-timer." Lyone watched in horror as Rick casually consumed a substance that would put most galactic citizens in immediate need of emergency detoxification. Around the shop, other humans were adding white crystals that her suit identified as processed sucrose in quantities that should have induced toxic shock. "Beth," she said carefully, "may I ask about your species' medical care? Surely consuming these substances requires frequent treatment." Beth looked confused. "Medical care? For coffee? Not unless you have too much and can't sleep, though I guess some people get jittery if they drink it too late in the day." She paused, thinking, "Actually, my doctor says I should probably cut back to 3 cups a day, but that's more about general health than anything serious." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. Through the shop's transparent barriers, Lyone watched as humans rushed toward what appeared to be a catastrophic emergency. A massive vehicle had collided with another, producing smoke and the sound of twisting metal. "Oh no, looks like there's been an accident," Beth said, immediately moving toward the door. "Come on, let's see if anyone needs help." Lyone followed, expecting to find a scene of devastation. Instead, she watched in amazement as humans calmly extracted themselves from the twisted wreckage, checked each other for injuries, and began coordinating recovery efforts. One of the involved humans, a woman named Patricia, had what appeared to be significant damage to her facial structure, with red fluid leaking from several points. "You need immediate medical attention," Lyone called out. Patricia touched her face and looked at the blood on her fingers. "This? Nah. It's just a bloody nose and maybe a split lip. I've had worse falling off my bike. Though I probably should get checked out, just to be safe. My insurance should cover it." The casual way Patricia dismissed injuries that would be life-threatening to most species left Lyone speechless. This wasn't just survival on a death world. These creatures had evolved so far beyond normal limitations that they considered near-fatal conditions to be minor inconveniences. As emergency responders arrived and began treating the accident victims with the same casual efficiency they might use for any routine task, Lyone realized that first contact protocols would need to be completely rewritten. The galaxy wasn't meeting a primitive species that needed guidance and protection. They were meeting apex predators who had turned the most hostile known world into their playground. General Caxton had commanded the most elite military units in 3 different galactic sectors, but standing on the sidelines of what humans called a basketball court made him question everything he thought he knew about combat and physical capability. His full military assessment team stood behind him, each encased in powered exoskeletons designed to handle the most extreme battlefield conditions the galaxy had to offer. The humans warming up in front of them wore nothing but thin fabric shorts and sleeveless shirts. "All right, folks," called out their host, a tall human named Austin who served as some kind of recreational coordinator. "Thanks for coming out to watch our pickup game. We kept it pretty mellow today, since we've got guests. Just a friendly match between the university team and some folks from the local rec center." Caxita's tactical advisor leaned over, speaking through their suit's private communication system. "Sir, our readings show these humans are about to engage in high-impact physical contact without any protective equipment whatsoever." "I can see that," Caxith replied grimly. "Are we certain this isn't some kind of ritual combat?" Before anyone could answer, the game began. What followed challenged every assumption about biological limitations that galactic science had established over millennia. The humans launched themselves into the air with explosive force that exceeded the jump capabilities of Caxitha's powered armor. They collided mid-flight in ways that would shatter the bones of any known species, then landed and continued moving as if nothing had happened. One player, a female named Casey, took what appeared to be a devastating impact directly to her facial structure from another player's elbow. Blood immediately began flowing from her nose, but instead of seeking medical attention, she simply wiped it away with the back of her hand and kept playing. "Is she dying?" Caxith whispered to Austin. Austin glanced over and chuckled. "Casey? Nah, she's tough as nails. That's nothing for her. She once played an entire tournament with a sprained ankle, scored 30 points in the championship game." The alien general watched in growing horror as Casey not only continued playing, but seemed to become more aggressive after the injury. She began launching herself at the circular target with increased intensity, using her own body weight as a weapon against offenders who were trying to stop her. "This is considered safe recreational activity?" asked the team's medical officer. "Oh, absolutely," replied another human who had been sitting on the sidelines. This one introduced himself as Derek, apparently a local teacher. "Basketball's pretty tame, actually. You should see our football games, or better yet, hockey. Now, those sports really get your blood pumping." Cax had made a note to research these other activities later, though he suspected his sanity might not survive the investigation. The demonstration continued with humans performing feats that defied physics. A player named Tony somehow changed direction midair while falling, contorted his body in ways that should have dislocated multiple joints. Another, called Miguel, absorbed a collision that would have required emergency medical evacuation for any galactic species, then immediately launched a projectile toward a target with pinpoint accuracy. How do they survive impacts like that? Caxith's engineer whispered. "Look at their bone density readings," came the reply. "Their skeletal structure is almost 3 times denser than standard for their body weight, and their muscle fiber composition. It's like they're built for constant physical trauma." What truly amazed the alien observers was the social aspect of what they were witnessing. Between periods of violent physical contact, the humans engaged in friendly conversation. They encouraged each other, shared water from common containers, and even helped opposing players up after particularly aggressive collisions. During a brief rest period, a human named Jordan approached the alien delegation. His face was covered in sweat, which Cax's suit identified as a cooling mechanism involving the secretion of salt water through skin pores. Most species would die from that level of fluid loss. "You guys want to try a few shots?" Jordan offered, holding out the spherical projectile they'd been launching at the circular target. "It's pretty fun once you get the hang of it." Cax had accepted the object, surprised by its weight and texture. Through his powered gloves, he could feel the material was designed for maximum grip, even when wet with human secretions. "Just aim for the basket and give it a good throw," Jordan encouraged. The general activated his suit's targeting system, calculated trajectory and force requirements, and launched the sphere with mechanical precision. It sailed far over the target and crashed into a wall behind it with enough force to crack the surface. "Whoa there, big guy," Jordan laughed. "Maybe dial it back about 90%. Here, let me show you." What followed was perhaps the most humbling experience of Caxith's military career. This unarmored human, using nothing but biological muscle and visual estimation, demonstrated accuracy and force control that exceeded his suit's computer-assisted capabilities. Jordan sank shot after shot, while barely seeming to try, adjusting for wind, distance, and angle with unconscious ease. "It's all about feel," Jordan explained. "You just kind of develop an instinct for it after a while. I've been playing since I was about 6 years old." The thought that these creatures began training for combat-level physical activities as children sent a chill through the entire alien assessment team. As the demonstration concluded and the humans began cleaning up, Cax had realized he wasn't observing recreational activity at all. He was watching a species that had turned warfare-level physical conditioning into entertainment, and they were doing it without any of the technological support that made such feats possible for other galactic civilizations. These weren't just survivors of a death world. They were living weapons who had evolved to find joy in activities that would hospitalize trained soldiers from any other known species. Council Speaker Morden's crystalline form flickered through every color in his species' emotional spectrum as he reviewed the final reports. 3 months of observation, hundreds of hours of recorded interactions, and thousands of data points all led to the same impossible conclusion. The humans weren't just surviving on their death world. They had turned it into a playground. "Read me the recreational activities list again," he requested wearily. Dr. Veltar's voice carried a note of disbelief even after all this time. "They voluntarily climb mountains in atmospheric conditions too thin to support consciousness in most species. They call it hiking and consider it relaxing. They swim in oceans filled with predatory creatures under crushing pressure, and they do it for fun. They strap pieces of wood to their feet and launch themselves down frozen mountains at speeds that would be considered reckless for our fastest vehicles. And the combat sports?" Morden asked, though he dreaded the answer. "They've created dozens of ways to fight each other without weapons, and they sell tickets for other humans to watch. Boxing, wrestling, something called mixed martial arts where they combine multiple fighting techniques. The participants voluntarily enter arenas to inflict physical damage on each other, and the spectators cheer. Afterward, the fighters often become friends." Captain Rexanar joined the conversation from his position still orbiting Earth. "Council Speaker, I've been monitoring their global communications networks. You need to hear this. They have something called extreme sports, where they intentionally seek out the most dangerous activities possible. Jumping out of flying vehicles with only fabric to slow their fall. Diving into caves filled with water where there's no breathable atmosphere. Riding down rapids in small boats that regularly capsize." Morden's form darkened to deep purple, indicating severe stress. "These activities result in casualties?" "That's a disturbing part," Rexanar continued. "They know the risks. They calculate them carefully. They wear safety equipment and train extensively, but they do it anyway because they find danger enjoyable. I watched a human named Bruce explain to his offspring how to properly fall off a cliff while attached to a rope. The child was excited about learning." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These weren't desperate survivors clinging to life on a hostile world. These were creatures who had mastered their environment so completely that they had to create artificial dangers to satisfy some deep biological need for challenge and risk. "Show them the historical data," Velnar suggested quietly. The main display lit up with information that made the assembled delegates wish they could unsee it. Human history read like a catalog of extinction-level events that would have ended any other known civilization. Ice ages that should have frozen all life. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for years. Asteroid impacts that reshaped continents. Plagues that killed significant portions of their population. And through it all, humans had not just survived, but had grown stronger. "Look at this time period they call the medieval era," Veltar explained. "A bacterial infection killed 1/3 of their entire species. Any rational civilization would have retreated to isolated safe zones and focused entirely on medical research. Instead, humans used the crisis as an opportunity to restructure societies and advance their technology. Or this event called World War II," added Rexanar. "They fought a global conflict using weapons that could level cities, while simultaneously developing technology that would eventually take them to space. They turned a planet-wide catastrophe into a technological revolution." General Caxitha's report was perhaps the most disturbing. "Council Speaker, I need to inform you about their military capabilities. Not their weapons, which are impressive enough, but their personnel. I observed training exercises where humans voluntarily subjected themselves to conditions we would classify as torture. Sleep deprivation, extreme temperatures, psychological stress, and physical punishment that would break the spirits of our most elite soldiers. The trainees requested this treatment." Morden asked. "They competed for the opportunity to endure it," Caxit replied. "And the humans who successfully completed the training were celebrated as heroes. They call them special forces, and these individuals regularly volunteer for missions that our computers calculate as having zero probability of survival. Yet they survive anyway," Veltar added softly. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as the full picture became clear. The galaxy had spent millennia developing technology to overcome environmental challenges, protect their populations from danger, and create safe, comfortable societies. Humans had taken the opposite approach. They had evolved to thrive on challenge, to grow stronger from adversity, and to find pleasure in activities that would terrify the most advanced galactic civilizations. Council speaker. Came a new voice from the communication array. It was Austin, the human recreational coordinator they had been working with. We finished preparing our application for galactic membership. We're pretty excited about the opportunities for cultural exchange and exploration. What kind of exploration interests your species? Morden asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Well, we've been looking at your star charts, and we noticed there are a lot of worlds marked as uninhabitable. Extreme gravity, toxic atmospheres, dangerous weather patterns, that sort of thing. We figure those might be perfect for a human settlement. We love a good challenge, and it would be great to help expand livable space for everyone. The alien delegates exchanged glances. Humans weren't asking to join galactic civilization for protection or guidance. They were volunteering to colonize every death world in known space, and they were excited about it. As the implications of humanity's offer settled over the council chambers, Morden realized they weren't just witnessing first contact anymore. They were watching the moment when the galaxy's most successful predators announced their intention to expand beyond their nightmare world and explore the comparatively gentle universe beyond. And they thought it would be fun.